Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final event of our Lancaster University Library Festival. I'm Andrew Barker. I'm Director of Library Services here at Lancaster University Library, and I'm going to be your host tonight. So good evening and welcome. Our evening will work out with in conversation moments, and we will have some acts on stage, and we'll have a break in the middle to allow people to have some drink, some food, and make use of the facilities. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm delighted to welcome our first guests to the sofa. We've got Romain, Bardot, and Cyrille, Rollet, who are the people behind our wonderful display, Cartoons for Freedom. So I'd like to welcome the two of you to the event tonight. So I'll give you a brief introduction to who our colleagues are. So our guest, Romain, has been at Lancaster University since 2012 and is now a teaching fellow in French here. He has a long experience of teaching in an international context, both in the UK and in Germany. He likes to share his knowledge and love of French culture and love making people culturally aware. And we've been having a great discussion about French culture all through this evening already. His fields of interest are language and translation, as well as politics and intercultural questions. So welcome, Romain. Cyrille has a long experience of teaching languages in secondary schools and has been at Lancaster since 2017. He loves sharing Francophone culture and, more widely, the French point of view on important topics. His fields of interest are languages, linguistics, media, and the Olympic ideals. He also likes to make people aware of other cultures and sharing his own. So welcome to the two of you. I'd like to say, and welcome as our first guests this evening. So I want to start with a question around the cartoons and the point of political cartoons, and just ask you about, why are political cartoons important in a way to convey opinions?
I think when you want to clarify something, when you want to, shout out to the world, there is nothing better than the visual aspect to it. A cartoon can be worth 1,000 words. And for me, that's the most important bit already in there. So you can use any picture to really raise awareness. That works with photos as well. But I think the good thing about cartoons is that it comes through already the mind of the person. The cartoonist has given his own personality into it. And that's what makes quite important in my mind.
So I'm just thinking about this exhibition. Can you give us the story of how it happened? And I believe there were some challenges along the way.
Yes, indeed. Originally, this exhibition was due to take place in March 2020, but if you remember well, COVID decided to come before the exhibition, and we had to postpone until, this year. This exhibition is actually a collaboration between Courrier International and the Institut Français in the UK, most importantly the Alliance Française in Manchester. The idea was really to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo attacks, if you remember, that took place in January 2015. And it's not just about this event, though. It's really about what can be achieved through cartoons. As Romain explained just before, the tradition of cartoons is very important in Francophone countries. Political cartoons, caricature, but also cartoons as a whole, like we all know Tintin, Asterix, and a lot of derivation from those two heroes actually take place in a lot of other works that you can find, either films, pictures, novels. A lot of people will have studied La Haine the very famous film that a lot of people study at sixth form. And in line there is a reference to Asterix. At some point, the drug dealer that they go and see is called Asterix, and they're waiting for him. And at some point, the other one goes, well, is he coming with Obelix or what? And clearly a reference there. And this is made with humor, but it really shows that cartoons are part of the culture and part of what French people and Francophone people are. I know that in England, for example, you also have in The Guardian, you've got a very famous cartoonist, and I must say, as a French person, that's one of the first pages I look at. When I open The Guardian, I look for the cartoon.
Yeah, the power of the cartoon. As you say, we were speaking about Asterix and Tintin earlier, and I suspect that people can tell I'm a bit of a Tintin fan from my hair, but also a huge Asterix fan. And the ref, I think, going to tell me it was Getafix rather than Obelix, who of course was famously the Druid. But you make a really important point there that I'd like to pull out, and you make it very much in the exhibition, that importance of caricature, and actually the right to caricature people. Just wonder if you can kind of share your thoughts on that aspect of political cartoons and cartoons.
Well, it's all about living together, isn't it? And it's all about the togetherness and the community. And you can only accept deeply and completely someone when you accept to be made fun of. Of course, there are limits, but that's a big debate to it. But it's very much a part of the freedom of speech, really. At the core of it is the freedom of speech, and from the point of view of the linguists who we are as well, it's very interesting to see as well the multicultural discussions that there are around that. And of course, we mentioned Charlie Hebdo earlier. It's this French paper is absolutely famous for having cartoonists from all over the world, but so are many papers. Le Monde has a cartoon almost on front page almost every day, and these have an impact worldwide, and for me it's about the togetherness and the culture around that. It's very important that we speak to each other through different mediums.
I think that's really interesting. That picks up a point about the use of them as communication tools. And we've already talked, you read Steve Bell in The Guardian, me talking about reading Asterix, that sense of cultures coming together and shared cultures. So what are your thoughts around how, and what has the response been to your exhibition in terms of how cartoons are communication tools?
Well, as you know, originally some of those caricature, and the reason why, well, one of the rationale behind the attack on Charlie Hebdo was the fact that they had decided to reproduce some of the cartoons that were originally produced in a Scandinavian country. And therefore, the question that needs to be asked here is, can we laugh about everything? Can we laugh about everything to everyone? And clearly the reason is not to everyone. And we can't laugh about all topics to everyone. Just like the freedom of speech, should it have some limits? For example, this debate was actually raised, and I thought about that last week, when some people actually criticized the size and the cost of the funeral of the Queen. And some people, I understand, in the media were actually arrested for actually criticizing the cost. And the question here is not should he have criticized the cost, but should he have been allowed to criticize? And it's all about the legality. It's all about the limit of what can be done and what cannot be done. Should those caricatures be forbidden? Or should they be allowed? Should they be? Should we take into account everyone's opinion? And is it possible to do that? This is very philosophical. It's more than just caricature. It's really a way of life. It's, again, Romain talked about the community and the spirit of community and living together and this togetherness. It's probably at its peak when you see mockery. And is mockery nasty? What is the goal of the humor? Because that's the thing. Is it to make people laugh? Is it to mock someone? Is it to ridicule someone? If it's ridicule, it's not so good. But if it's to just laugh about something and to show a diversity of opinions, in my opinion, there's no limit. And we should be able to laugh and caricature everything.
And to jump on that, the idea is that at the moment we live in an ever more globalized world. You know, borders are going down every day, or sometimes being pulled up actually. And you know, it's back to what we were saying at the beginning. The power of a cartoon can be very easily understood, even by someone who doesn't speak the language. Okay? I actually invite everyone to even if you don't speak French, especially if you don't speak any French, to actually look at the panels before looking at the translation, which is next to it, so that you have all the information. Don't worry. But you know, just how do you react to the cartoons? And also, the cartoons are not all from French speakers. There are some cartoons which are in English or from people from all over the world. So it's very important, that aspect as well.
I think that's a fantastic place to end. I would love to delve further into this conversation, and particularly, you know, you asked some questions that are really challenging for us as a society, both in this country and much more broadly, especially being in a university where so many of these questions are being asked about. So what I would encourage people is we have the break to wander around and have a look, and if you're with us, have some questions. Obviously, you work at the university. So thank you, Romain and Cyrille, for being absolutely wonderful guests. So thanks, thank you. Merci. So we now come to our first music of the evening. And we have Daisy Smith, who usually would ask us the question, do you like worms? Which is potentially, if you, that might be a strange question to some people, but that's the question that is also the name of a local Lancaster group that Daisy is a part of. Where normally she's joined by bass and drums, but tonight we're being treated to a rare solo performance. Perhaps we'll get to find out if Daisy likes worms, but I'm sure you love her music, which draws on influences of folk rock, indie and ska, and if you're a deep dive into the music, possibly the Beach Boys. Daisy, do you like worms?
Thank you very much. I was here last year and I was looking forward to that introduction because it was so good last year. Yeah, I'm Daisy. I'm here to hopefully entertain you with some original tunes and the odd cover as well. This first one is called Ripe Tomatoes, and I hope you enjoy it. From the looks of it, you can't hear me. No? There we go. Let's go again. Me and you've been going for a couple of weeks now. I've known you half my life, and that's enough time for me now. I've been away so long for you to come along, and you're just fine. I've been away so long for you to come along. You took your time. I said, I love you. I said, I do. Yeah, I do. I said, I love like you when you smile and you let your teeth show. It makes me blush so bad I look like a ripe tomato. I've been away so long for you to come along, and you're just fine. I've been away so long for you to come along. You took your time and said, ah, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I love you. I said, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I do. Yeah, I do. I said, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I love you. I said, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I do. Yeah, yeah, I love you. Yeah, yeah, I do. I love you. Yeah, I do. I say, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I love you. I say, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I do. I say, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I love you. I say, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, I do. Yeah, yeah, I love you. Yeah, yeah, I do. I love you. Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you very much. This next song I'm going to sing is called Lancaster, and it is named after our wonderful city. It's a song I wrote when I moved to Manchester, and it was about wanting to come back, and I'm here now, so it does have a draw about it, Lancaster. This lead is not playing tonight. Green fields, they call my name. I'm going back again. Things, they are gonna change. I'm going back again. Queen Vic, she said to me, come on over, babe, where people say hey and happy hour goes on and on. Why did you go? Why did you go and leave it all behind? Why did you go? Why did you go and say your goodbye? Going back again. Going back again. The rolling sea calls my name. I'm going back again. The music of many an age. I'm going back again. The ice in the winter calls. Come on over, babe. The cobbled streets stay the same as they've always been. Why did you go? Why did you go and leave it all behind? Why did you go? Why did you go and say your goodbye? Going back again. Going back again. Going back again. Going back again. Thank you. It is very strange. I'm sorry for rambling. I always get took the mick out of by my bandmates for rambling, but I'm used to playing in a really busy pub when no one's really listening or they eventually get the feet going. So it's lovely to have such an attentive audience. This next song is a cover. It's by the Waterboys, and it's not Whole of the Moon. It is In Search of a Rose, and I hope you enjoy it.
Where will I wander and wandering? Nobody knows, but wherever I'm a-going, I'll go in search of a rose. Whatever the will of the weather, whether it shines or snows, but wherever I'm a-going, I'll go in search of a rose. I don't know where it's found, but I don't mind, as long as the world spins around. I'll take my time, savor the softness of summer, wrap up when winter blows, 'cause wherever I'm a-going, I'll go in search of a rose. Wherever I wander and wandering, nobody knows, 'cause wherever I'm a-going, I'll go in search of a rose. Search of a rose. In search of a rose.
Thank you. An earlier song I did was Ripe Tomatoes, and staying with the food theme, this is a song of my own called Oranges. Interesting story. This was one of the first songs I ever wrote, and it won me £50 in innocent smoothie vouchers. Woo, not to be underestimated. Got me about 3 smoothies, but there we are. So this is Oranges.
This is for you, to tell you how I feel, 'cause I like you, yes I do, I really like you. I'm sometimes crap, I'm not too good with words, so I string a verse, 'cause I like you, I really like you. Not used to this feeling where my words just mumble up, I mean words just jumble up, and I look like a fool. Time is ticking and I've so much to say, I got it all planned out in my head, but your smile gets in the way, so I end up saying to you, like oranges, like oranges, I like you like oranges, like oranges, like oranges, like oranges, like you like oranges. I really like oranges, and I feel such a fool to spill out oranges to you, but hey, 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 hey. Nothing can describe the way I yearn to be alone with you. My body, your mind is taking over, and the body's so surrender. Feel like a child, it's warm and hot and rendering, and oh, 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 hey, 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 hey. Like oranges, like you like oranges, like oranges, like oranges, like you like oranges, like oranges, like oranges, like oranges, like cheesy chips, like the Jungle Book, like Weetabix, like the magic roundabout, like Father Ted, staying up late in bed, like Christmas Eve, like Morrissey, the smell of creosote, getting a rowing boat, like the thought of the king on tour, like Ribena juice, and old Doc Martin boots, oh, and oranges. I like oranges like you. Thank you. Oh, I've not sung that song in a while. I work with reception-age children on a day-to-day job, and if anybody's ever been in a school these first few weeks, awful. I'm knackered. So apologies that I'm a bit unfit, but I hope you still enjoyed the song. I believe I've got a couple more songs for you. This one is black and white, and I don't need that. This is about when things, as just in the talks we were just having, they're not black and white. Things need thinking about, and often you can be surrounded by people that think things are black and white with their own opinions, but this is a song about it not being black and white. I told you I ramble. Here we go. Wrong chords, here we go. I need time to figure out what is right. What is right? And time is ticking away down the drain. And you said that nothing would ever be the same. Yeah, you said nothing is gonna change, and nothing's black and white. Black and white, nothing's black and white. Black and white, right? Your head above the rise, your head up high. Right, and stop just a little bit, stop just a little bit, and right, and stop just a little bit, stop a little bit, and right. Yeah, you said that nothing would ever be the same. You said nothing is gonna change, and nothing's black and white. Black and white, nothing's black and white. Black and white, nothing's black and white. But stop just a little bit, stop just a little bit, and rise. Yeah, stop just a little bit, stop just a little bit, and rise. Yeah, you said that nothing would ever be the same. You said nothing is gonna change, and nothing's black and white. Black and white, nothing's black and white. Black and white, nothing's black and white. Nothing's black and white. Thank you. I've got 2 more songs. Yeah? Is that all right? 2 more songs. Sorry. When you're up here, all space of time goes. This one is a lockdown song. Every musician, I'm sure I'm looking at the other musicians, has got at least one lockdown song. This is my lockdown song, and it's called When I'm Sad. How happy is that? I'm sure we all felt like that at some point. So this is about social media, really, because I think that's when it came for its peak with me in lockdown, that you're looking at things going, what on earth? Why are you sharing that? I'm just not interested at all. And it gets some people down. But this is called When I'm Sad. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. of seeing all the crap that you post. And why would you want to see my new bloody coat? You've seen all the cakes I've made, and I painted a cat. So I guess I should be happy now, 'cause look at all of that. We're us messed up people in our mixed up lives. We're us messed up people in our mixed up lives. Can I ask you something? Can I ask something? Can I ask you something? Are you happy now? Are you happy now? Are you happy now? We're just messed up people in our mixed up lives. We're just messed up people in our mixed up lives. We're just messed up people in our mixed up lives. We're just messed up people in our mixed up lives. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is my last song, the one I'm going to leave you with. And it is the one that with the band, with myself, we always leave people with. It is our title track, Do You Like Worms? The name does come from my husband, who's our lead guitarist, being a huge fan of the Beach Boys. And apparently if you're really into the Beach Boys, you'll know the reference. But for me, it was about not knowing what to say to people on a date. And when you work with reception age children with special needs, you know, your mind is full of random things. So this is Do You Like Worms? I hope you enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed me. I am about at Lancaster Music Festival quite a lot, so come down and see us. It would be great to see you there. And enjoy the rest of your evening. This is Do You Like Worms? Well, hey, Mr. Nice Guy, you're quite fit. Well, I'd like to have a chat with you and have a drink and sit. So what's your name and how do you do? Well, come a little closer and tell me some more about you. I said, do you like worms? Well, I like worms. Do you like worms? Well, I like worms. Or would you rather be naked in the pouring rain or be sat with a screaming kid on an EasyJet plane? An EasyJet plane. His face says nothing but a water, and I drink my G&T with an awkward look, and I'm getting all sweaty and I don't know what to say, so I keep on going with all the same old play. I said, do you like worms? Well, I like worms. And do you like worms? Well, I like worms. Would you rather be naked in the river rain or be sat with a screaming kid on an EasyJet plane? An EasyJet plane. Well, I used to teach a kid who'd like to spin them round and round. He pulled their little bodies right out of the ground. He thought that they were having fun. Well, anyways, we better get it back to us. I said, do you like worms? Well, I like worms. And do you like worms? Well, I like worms. Or would you rather be naked in the pouring rain or be sat with a screaming kid on an EasyJet plane? An EasyJet plane. Do you like worms? Well, I like worms. And do you like worms? Yeah, I like worms. Or would you rather be naked in the pouring rain, sat and a screaming kid on an EasyJet plane? An EasyJet plane. An EasyJet plane. Thank you. I've been Daisy Smith, Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Daisy, that was absolutely tremendous. I can appreciate how challenging it might be when you're singing in a library, but the vibe at this side was fantastic. So thank you. I was also very taken with the fact that you had a song about Lancaster. Last night we had a song from somebody who'd moved from Liverpool to Lancaster and was missing Liverpool, so wrote a song about Liverpool. Tonight we have a song from somebody who moved to Manchester but was missing Lancaster. So maybe one day we'll have a song from somebody who misses Manchester, but I doubt it. So moving on. Sorry, I live in Liverpool, which I might have just given away then. But I want to turn now to our second guest, well, third guest, but second selection of speakers. Now, Alice, this year finds herself on the sofa after having been on the stage last year. Yes. So welcome to the sofa. Alice Ashcroft, who joins me as an independent musician and content creator. Alice, you host a podcast about the power of words. You also love reading, and you also have a background in computer science. You're currently studying for a PhD in gender and diversity in digital innovation. Alice talks about and uses word in every area of what she does. It drives the research that we're going to hear about that she carries out on gender, language and computer science. It ties into the lyrics she writes, and it's what motivates the podcast you host. So that's you, Alice. Welcome to the sofa. My first question to you is, so how did you end up researching gendered language and tech?
I think most researchers will have the same answer to this, which is by accident. I did my undergrad in computing and then carried on working in the IT department here, which I'd been working in for several years, and then started doing a PhD part-time, took the work part-time, realised it's quite hard to do lots of things part-time all at once, so last year handed my notice at work and started pursuing the PhD full-time. I'm currently intercalating because I have a 3-month-old baby at home. But yeah, so cracking on with the PhD now. Cracking on with the PhD.
So you've apparently, as part of that research, you've done a lot on hedging. Now, yes. When I hear hedging, I'm kind of thinking, well, hedge funds. Can you talk us through what hedging actually is to you?
Most people hear landscaping, which I think is quite interesting. Definitely a study in that. So hedging in terms of linguistics, and if there's any linguists in the audience, I am not a linguist by trade, so feel free to come up here and correct me, because I'm not a linguist in my background. But hedging is short for hedging your bets when it comes to language. So it's saying phrases like, I think when you know, or maybe when you're not sure, and there's definitely a gendered angle to that I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, so short for hedging your bets with language. So it can be used to express uncertainty when there isn't uncertainty. It can also be used as kind of a persuasion tool. So like, oh, you know this thing that happened last week? I've got no idea if he knows that. But I'm hedging my bets with language again. So it can be used in lots of different ways, but hedging is the kind of shortened term for that.
Right, now I would suggest if anyone wants to challenge you on the linguistics, to at least wait till you're off the sofa.
Well, it's up to them.
If you want to race and join us on the sofa, you're very welcome. But I think I'd rather.
I got in trouble for inviting you all. Sorry.
There's only so much room on this sofa, Alice. So you mentioned how hedging is influenced and impacted by gender. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of what should we say, conflicting research from linguistics on the sort of differences in gender, but pretty much most research agrees that men and women at least use it differently. So there's some research, and this kind of goes back to like 70s, 80s. This isn't new, this concept of hedging. It'd be interesting to kind of look at it now and sort of see if from a linguistics background it's changed. But when it comes to gender and how that's affected, how hedging is affected by gender, there's kind of this argument that women use hedging a lot more to express uncertainty when there isn't any, because there's this idea of taking up space, and women, well, when they're girls, when they're children, are quite often told to take up less space more than boys are. So it's kind of got nothing to do with how we're born, it's how boys and girls are taught to speak differently. So women use hedging a lot more to express uncertainty, but it's suggested that men use hedging a lot more to persuade people. And quite often that's automatically seen as a bad thing, whereas you could argue that sometimes it is a good thing to use hedging, because sometimes it's not always safe to use to say exactly what we think in spaces as women. So sometimes it's used as a tool so that we are heard, but then we're kind of perpetuating this idea that we need to take up less space. So it's a whole can of worms, to reference the last band. But yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, there's a lot of people that disagree. Some people say women use it more, some people say they use it the same amount but differently, but it's definitely affected by gender.
So I'm interested in at that point, as a man but with two daughters, where does that gendering come through? You said it's not through, we're not born like that. So is that primary socialisation of the family? Is it through school? Is it where?
I'd say like everything, it's from the word go. So having been pregnant, one of the first things people ask me when they found out I was pregnant is, oh, so do you know what you're having? It's like, does it matter right now? Like, I have no idea who they're going to grow up to be. So it's kind of, we care about that before the child even appears. We're painting bedrooms blue and pink. We're reinforcing those stereotypes in the home straight away. And even if you don't, as a parent, you then, they go into schools and you might have given them the choice between everything until the point they enter school. But if no other parents have done that, and then they're surrounded, if they're a girl, they're surrounded by a group of girls who have all been given Barbies and pink things since they were a child, they're going to get that from there, even if you've done the best you can to give them every opportunity at home. The things they see on TV, we can't blame one specific person. I think it's everything has to change, which is quite hard. But when it comes to language specifically, it's things like, there was an image that went viral on social media a couple of years ago where they had two little baby grows, and one of the blue one said something like Superman, and then the pink one said, I hate my thighs, for a baby. And it's just things like that. We're putting all of these differences on gender to small beings that haven't decided what they are yet, and that's quite upsetting.
Indeed, so whatever we as parents try to do, there's always those external influences.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't try as a parent either. No. But we all need to try. So even when before I was a parent, but even when I was interacting with other people's children, I'd make like a real effort to, instead of when a girl walks in wearing a dress going, oh, that dress looks pretty, it's, oh, that looks like it's really good for moving around in, and sort of compliment things which aren't looks. And then when it was a boy, when they were talking about their feelings, kind of really encourage that, because feminism works on both sides. It's not just to help girls, it's to help boys as well.
So we mentioned...
Sorry, tangents here.
No, well, I hope you don't mind, because I'm going to come on a tangent as well.
Great.
You mentioned your podcast. Can you take us through what you talk about in your podcast?
Yeah, so that started because I started reviewing books on Instagram. I try and read 52 books a year, which we spoke about before.
We did.
And you're doing better than me this year so far in your reading challenge.
So far, but I know somebody who's doing better than me.
So anyway, I read a lot of books and started working with publishers to kind of review their books. And a few of them said, hey, do you want to interview some authors? And I was like, yeah, like that's the dream. So I started a podcast interviewing authors. And the thing that really excited me about that, I mean, it's kind of the dream to interview like the people that you've been a fan of for years and their writing. But it was sort of getting a little bit deeper, because it's the thing that I've always loved about music as well, is kind of exploring lyrics, sort of like what did they mean by that? What's the double meaning? What did they intend? What are we hearing as an audience? And then when it comes to books, there's kind of even more scope for that, because it's not 3 minutes, it's like several thousand words. So yeah, just the way that people use language, I think is so, like we've got a certain number of letters, right? And everything's produced using them, so it's kind of incredible.
So you said you spoke to some people who did you speak to? Who are the ones that you said?
So the most popular episodes are Beth O'Leary, who's author of The Flat Share, and The Switch, and The Road Trip, and her fourth book, which I can definitely remember the name of. Melanie Murphy, who I'd been watching her YouTube videos since I was like a teenager. Yeah, I've been very lucky to have some Sunday Times bestsellers and quite successful authors on. It's been great. Now
I have to say, obviously, it might be a surprise to our guests, but we're in a library.
We
are. So
the dream.
Strikes me, we're sometimes known to engage with books occasionally. Yeah. Strikes me that there might well be opportunities for us to kind of connect outside this, because libraries and the whole festival is about how we connect. This has turned into a networking event now. It should all, yeah, indeed. It'd be good to connect and think about how we could kind of bring those two things together. But that's a conversation for after the sofa. But as a final roundup of what we've talked about, you talked about how hedging is impacted by gender. How does that then impact on development, and what can we learn?
Yeah, so this is my niche. So,
brilliant.
I'm really interested in how this gendered language affects software decisions that are made, or like design decisions. So there was a really great book, which whenever I say what I research, people always recommend to me, called Invisible Women. And it's kind of the gateway book that I recommend to this area. And it's how when things are designed, quite often men are assumed to be the default. So women are a lot more likely to die in car accidents because seatbelts and safety harnesses are designed for the male body and not the female body. So that's a great book, as sort of if you're interested in how gender affects software design and product design. That's a great book. But going a little bit deeper than that, I was really interested in how this kind of hedging and gendered language impacts decisions, like when people are designing software. So to sort of make it really arbitrary, if you had a group of men and women designing an app or a website, and somebody is more likely to say, I think the button should be on the left, and somebody else is more likely to say, the button should be on the right, who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to the person who's expressing it as an opinion and not a fact. Now that person happens to be, statistically, is more likely to be a man, not a woman. Therefore, men are designing these products, not women. And it's really important to not only have people in the room, but make sure that they're heard. And I think that's the really important distinction that quite a few, just everybody makes the mistake of doing. It's, oh, well, our company has, 50-50 gender split. Gender's not binary. We have 50-50 gender split. But are those people in that room being listened to? Are their opinions being taken seriously? You might have 50-50 gender split in the company, but if everyone at the top is a man, they're more likely to be listened to because you've got power dynamics, you've got gendered language, you've kind of got everything working against people. And then you add in other things other than gender, and you look at intersectionality, and you have race, you have sexual identity, all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's just working against people all the time. So to bring it back, I'm looking at how the gendered language affects the decisions that are made when software's being built, because that's how niche you have to go with the PhD. But I think this does apply to, if you're working in a library and you're deciding what the temperature should be, women generally need temperatures to be, I think, 3 degrees warmer to be comfortable than men. So you'll see women sat there with cardigans, or people who are going through the menopause, taking things off. And it's more than just designing software. It affects everybody in every industry, and software just happens to be kind of the niche that I'm sitting in while doing my PhD.
I mean, I'm particularly conscious of, as you said there, people going through perimenopause and menopause, and how we think about spaces like this, for the library, for example. And actually, on the design front, I've just seen an example of exactly what you've described, because I sat in a chair, and then 2 women that I know sat in the same chair, perfect for me. Legs weren't anywhere near the ground for them. Is that an example of that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of using the male body as the default, and anything other than that is different, and that's not how humans work. Even when people talk about sex versus gender, so generally sex is referred to biology and gender is referred to identity, and so you use terms like male and female to describe sex, and woman, man, non-binary, trans, whatever, to describe gender. Even if you ignore kind of the trans identity argument, which you shouldn't, but even if you do, biological sex is so much more than the binary. It's made up of 5 biological factors, only one of which is external genitalia. So it's so much more complicated than that. And so we're designing it for this one very specific characteristic, and it's so much more than that. So yeah, perfect example.
Yeah, complexity, brilliant. So Alice, to conclude, where do you hope that following your PhD that you take this research? Because clearly this is hugely impactful.
Yes. I would really like it to make an actual difference to people sat in meeting rooms. I think at the moment I'm going to various companies and giving talks and kind of presenting my research, and already I've had people message me from those companies and say, oh, I've noticed that my ideas are being taken a bit more seriously in these meetings since you came and gave that talk, and that's the best message to get. So hopefully, I mean, I'd love to break down every gender stereotype so every young child growing up never learns to say things in these certain ways, but I think that's setting the bar a bit high for myself. I think I'd just like to make people be intentional with their language and interrogate things a bit further. So if you're sat in a meeting room with somebody and they go, oh, I think this, you go, oh, why do you think that? You don't have to say, well, is that an opinion or a fact? You say, why? Or if somebody says something as a fact, you go, oh, why have you said that? And then either way, someone can go, oh, well, it's just my opinion, or, oh, actually, I read this study which supports my argument, or... So I think it's kind of twofold. You don't want to put the onus on women to fix a problem created by society and say, you need to change how you use language. Although if you'd like to change how you use language, that's great. But it's being intentional with the language that we use, and it's also asking people what they mean when they say things until the the playing field is level, we kind of have to ask people why they're saying certain things.
I think it's to wrap things up, it's a fascinating subject, and as you say, also, you know, ethnicity, social class, there's so many different aspects of that.
Gender,
that's right, that we need to reflect on. It'd be useful to pick up this conversation outside this in terms of how we can think about what we do as a library, but also, you know, working within the library. So thank you, Alice, because that has been a really wonderful, for me, opportunity to reflect and think about some of the points you made about what I do in my day-to-day life. So
and that's all I ask people do.
Indeed, indeed. So thank you, Alice. I'm now delighted to welcome Scott Millington, who will be our second act. Scott is a singer-songwriter and player of many instruments, including brass, piano, guitar, mandolin, and banjo. He's a lover of travelling and experimental cooking, and last year released his LP Waymarks. I'd like to welcome Scott. We will then finish for a break, but before then, let's enjoy Scott. Over to you, Scott.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Right. I fell in love with 100 strangers without uttering a word, and sometimes their eyes spoke back and only our hearts heard. Love is what happens when you aren't afraid to dance, and if one gets up and walks away, another takes your hand. Dreams of love in crowded places echo in my head, and words of love dance on our lips but still remain unsaid. Love is what happens when you aren't afraid to dance, and if one gets up and walks away, another takes your hand. Will it be this time? Will our hearts entwine, or like fish in a shoal, swim together and then veer off alone? Love is what happens when you aren't afraid to dance, and if one gets up and walks away, another takes your hand. Love is what happens when you aren't afraid to dance, and if one gets up and walks away, another takes your hand. Thank you very much. That was the dance, which I wrote with my friend Eleanor, which was inspired by a story she told about someone she knew, and every time they met, they just got a little bit closer to getting together, but then swerved away again and danced away again. It was just like they just kept circling each other, never quite making it. And it was like, let's write a song about that. And Eleanor and I have come up with a little project. We'll be performing in the Lancaster Music Festival Atticus on the Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. We've called ourselves Cape Jasmine. We were going through a list of poisonous flowers. We wanted something that was sweet but had a little bite underneath it. But we thought Cape Jasmine, which is actually another name for a gardenia, sounded like a place. So we thought about having this fantasy about basing songs in a place. And this song is based in Cape Jasmine. She was out walking, and they spotted the gorse and the foxglove, and I thought, that sounds like a pub. Wouldn't it be great if it was a pub where illicit lovers could meet? old gorse and foxglove, under the marigold light. Teasing glimpses of forbidden love take me back to Cape Jasmine tonight. In the back streets of Cape Jasmine, where the good gentle folk don't know. If your heart is restless and your eyes are roving, there's one place you can always go. There's one place you can always go. Down to the old gorse and foxglove, under the marigold light. Tears and glimpses of forbidden love take me back to Cape Jasmine tonight. He had a husband in the city, I had a wife down the road. He asked me to dance after one drink too many, and that one night was all that we'd know. That one night was all that we'd know. Down at the old gorse and foxglove, under the marigold light. Tears and glimpses of forbidden love take me back to Cape Jasmine tonight. His kiss was hotter than July, and his eyes were bluer than violets. Wrong way round. My heart beat faster than a runaway train as he danced me round the floor one more time. He danced me round the floor one more time. Where are you now? Where are you? Where are you now? Where are you? Where are you now? Where are you now? Where are you now? Where are you? Where are you now? Where are you? Where are you now? Where are you now? He went back to the city. I left my wife down the road. I've lived a life full of daring and dreams, but there's one place I'd still love to go. There's one place I'd still love to go. Down to the old gorse and foxglove, under the marigold light. Tears and glimpses of forbidden love take me back to Cape Jasmine tonight. Take me back to Cape Jasmine tonight. Take me back to Cape Jasmine tonight. Thank you. Now, this next song was written last weekend. I was on a songwriting weekend in Scotland with some of my friends I met on a workshop a few years ago. We met up in lockdown on Zoom, and we said it would be lovely to meet up in person. And we finally managed it. And on the Sunday morning, we've been looking at the photos of Vivian Maier. I don't know if any of you have heard of her. She's this American. Well, she was based in Chicago, and she was a street photographer, and she just took photos everywhere she went, and not all of her photos were developed, and there were boxes and boxes and boxes of negatives, and a couple of years before she died, somebody bought them and developed them, and there were books of them and exhibitions. I think there's an exhibition down in Milton Keynes, but we're flicking through this book of all the photographs and getting inspiration for songs, and this is one such song. There was a woman snapped in a phone booth. She got twiddling a pen, and she got the phone to her and looking a bit shifty. Wonder what's going off there. This is the phone booth. Hello, honey, I can't speak for long. I've only 50 cents, and he doesn't know I'm gone. If we want to be together, this is what we've got to do. I can't wait forever. just wanna be with you. So meet me at the Lincoln, the phone booth on the right. We could be far away tomorrow, but we've got to travel light. No pretending to be strangers anymore. Our old lives are ending. We've got one foot out the door. Oh honey, the time is ticking by, and I'm starting to wonder if this was all a lie. What did you tell her? Did she try to change your view? 'Cause you know I'm gonna do this with or without you. If you meet me at the Lincoln, the phone booth on the right, we could be far away tomorrow. We've got to go tonight. So meet me at the Lincoln, I'll be standing in the light. We'll be far away tomorrow in New York by morning light. Hello, honey. Thank you. And I still haven't decided whether he turned up at the end. Right. Okay. This is the slightly scary bit. I always worry that strings are going to snap when I do this. Right, so that's that. Now this is a song, I will try and talk while I tune. I wrote this song earlier this year in response to a photo I saw on Twitter. It was a photo of the face of the statue of David, which you don't normally get to see. You normally get to see him standing like this, looking very... But it looks... Up close, his face looks rather worried. And I didn't actually realise until I started researching that it's actually David from the Bible. You know. And there were stories I didn't know about him, and it mentioned Jonathan, and I don't know if anyone are familiar with, but there are different schools of thought about the nature of their relationship, whether they're a shining example of platonic friendship because they were inseparable, and Jonathan gave up his position in line for the throne for David. But there's also another school of thought that despite having copious amounts of wives and children, they were also a couple. So and there's a story where Jonathan sends David a secret signal to let him know whether he's going to be safe or whether he's going to have to flee for his life. And I thought, so this is a song about the last night together. So it's either the last night between two best friends or it's the last night between two lovers. Decide for yourselves. Lay your arms down. Tell me how your day's been. I'll pour a drink. Take your mind off all the things you've seen. Leave the world outside on the doorstep. Close your eyes. Let me place a kiss on your head. 'Cause you're safe in here. From the slings and the arrows, call your wife. Say you'll be home tomorrow. For tonight, David, it's just you and me. And the love we swore that forever would be. Lovers come and go, but no one can candy coat, all that goes unspoken between you and me. Lay your head down in the soft evening light. I will shield you from the ghosts that haunt you in the night. You once told me you found grace in my eyes, my bow, my crown, my family. For you I sacrificed, and we're safe in here from the slings and the arrows. Hold me close. Don't think about tomorrow, for tonight, David, it's just you and me, and the love we swore that forever would be. Lovers come and go, but no one can decode all that goes unspoken between you and me. The arrow flew beyond its target. The battles have already started. But tonight, David, it's just you and me, and the love I swear that forever will be. Years may come and go, love has bound our souls wherever you may go. Hold the memory close of the love unbroken between you and me. Thank you. The curse of writing in strange tunings, I do apologise. Right. This is another song that came from a picture. This is a song inspired by a painting by an Australian artist called Prudence Flint. And I spotted this one on Twitter as well, posted by Tanita Tickerham when I was sat at work during lockdown, and I should have been working, but there was nobody about. So eternal thanks to Tanita for posting this picture and giving the inspiration. This is called Green Tea Ice Cream. Indian summer in November, sun streaming in through the blinds, humming a tune I half remember. It's too nice out there to be inside. Stefan's painting his house, Dolly's at the sewing machine. Jeanette, she's watching TV on the couch, and everyone's busy but me. Oh, a day like this, it feels like a dream. Sitting on a bench by the ocean, seagulls and green tea ice cream. And Judy's on the counter at the corner store, out gossip with the change. And she said, this time last year, remember, it was -4. I'd like to have drove us all insane. And now I'm looking at the house on the shoreline, wishing that it belonged to me. I could sit out on the porch with a glass of wine, watch the moon kiss the sea. I wonder if someone's out there dreaming the same dream, sitting on a bench by the ocean, seagulls and green tea ice cream. attention. There's a chill now in the sunshine. I never thought to bring a coat. I think I'll sit out with some wine tonight. The moon and I will drink a toast. I wonder if someone's out there picturing the scene. A woman on a bench by the ocean, seagulls and green tea ice cream. Maybe they'll paint me for all the world to see. Sitting on a bench by the ocean, seagulls and green tea ice cream. Green tea ice cream. Green tea ice cream. Thank you very much. And this is my last song. And this is called You May Not Write Me. And I wondered about a piece of artwork or a song or a book speaking back to the artist saying, I'm not ready yet. Keep going. No, you may not write me. You're not listening hard enough. Don't try to find me. When I'm ready, I will come. You may have to dig a little deeper to find the treasure that I hide. Only when you've traveled far enough can you let the world inside. No, you may not sing me. I'm not ready yet to fly. Need some time here on the ground before I think about the sky. All the hardiest of sailors learn the wisdom of the sea. You may love the shelter of the harbour, that's not where you're meant to be. Everybody has one story, told 1,000 different ways. We're stumbling into becoming ourselves one of these days. No, you may not play me. Let me rest for one more night. Your mind is turning circles and it's clouding up your sight. Things may seem a little clearer in the gentle light of day. And when you let go of your fear, you can send me on my way. No, you may not write me. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Helen. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. We'll jump straight in, and I'd like to introduce my next guest to the sofa. It's Gemma Coupe, and Gemma is the Impact Manager for Beyond Imagination, which is a £13.2 million research project in Imagination Lancaster, which is Lancaster University's design-led research lab. Gemma's role includes developing strategic partnerships with external organisations and evaluating the impact of Imagination's research on the people, the places and the organisations they work with. So I'm going to start Gemma, by first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
And then asking you, can you tell us a bit about the Beyond Imagination and the life survey that has come from your work?
Of course, happy to. So Imagination, as you said, it's Lancaster's design research lab. So we've used design and design research and more recently architecture to research how design and architecture can make a difference in the real world. And Imagination was doing really well in terms of its research income, and they put a funding call out, Research England, and they wanted to double the size of some research places. So Beyond Imagination was actually a grant of 13.2 million to double the size of our team. So we got 10 PhDs, 10 postdocs, and 10 permanent lecturer post-funded. So it's a very international project. Most of our work is outward facing with, it can be anything from co-design with communities to big strategic projects with the council and looking at maybe health prevention in Africa. It's so wide ranging. We can look at e-waste. We can be researching what makes a city livable, artificial intelligence. We do things like design fiction where, say, if the council thinks of a policy, and I wish our national government, they use this approach now as well sometimes, actually like looking at those scenarios and thinking, well, if we do this, who does that impact? And actually interviewing those people and co-designing and engaging with them and thinking beyond the short-term future as to what impact that actually has on individuals and society-wide. So it does a huge range of research, really, far more than I can give credit to in a conversation like this.
So the life survey, which you've been working on, can you tell us a little bit about
So it's a bit of
experience?
an unusual project for Imagination in that it's a data project, which is where the library came in, when of course we're trying to publish the results. Yeah. So we, because of COVID, well actually no, it wasn't quite COVID. We did have an underspend later with COVID, but we got them funding, and then it was like, right, and press go on the project, but we had to recruit 30 people. So if you think of getting all those job descriptions through and getting the room in the professor's diary and getting people to travel from all over, then that was 6 months. So that was quite a hefty underspend. So it was, so how do we spend this and how do we spend it well? So we consulted with Lancaster City Council, who we were working with really closely as part of this project. We were a key partner that helped to develop the MOU with the City Council recently. And they said, we used to do population surveys every couple of years, but with austerity, we haven't had the funding to do that. So whilst they do work closely with the communities and have community conversations, it's often not a representative sample. It's often people that come along to consultation events. And they wanted to see if we could use the underspend to do a survey that would engage a representative sample. And we were also working quite closely with Blackburn, with Darwin Council, and they said, we'd love that as well. And they were very keen actually for the survey to be the same questions, which saved us a big headache.
What's quite interesting about this, I mean, it's all about connections. You very helpfully referenced the work you've done with the Open Research team and how we've helped you. But also I was thinking there, actually, there's a lot of Alice said earlier that would fit quite interestingly with...
It really does. I was thinking that when she was talking, especially in terms of analysing this survey in terms of gender responses as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so we, again, this was sort of COVID time, and I remember there was a particular time in the office, I was supposed to be going to a conference in Brooklyn, New York, really excited, never been. Ruth Dalton in architecture, she was going to Hawaii, and pretty much every day we'd come to the office and we'd go, are you going? Are you going? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Have you seen the news? Oh, I don't know what's going on. And then at the same time, we were procuring, we wanted to procure the survey to a really good market research company that would really engage with our communities and treat them very respectfully, because we normally do very much co-design with communities. So for us to just go out and ask people a questionnaire was actually quite a shift. So we wanted to do it well. So we did this big procurement exercise, and we sat there and we did all the scoring with our partners from the councils, and it must have been about March the 13th. And Professor Jo Knight, who was our advisor on the survey, chair of the Data Science Institute, thankfully she was amazing, answering all my questions on data. She sort of looked at us going, you can't commission this right now. There's going to be a lockdown. And I didn't really even know what that meant at that point. And sure enough, a week later, lockdown. And we were hoping to go and interview we wanted to do face-to-face interviews because our partners had said there is much more value in a face-to-face interview than doing it all online. So obviously we couldn't then send out BMG market researchers into the community with the lanyards in the middle of a lockdown. So we pressed pause on the survey. But what we did in that time, we did select BMG because they were heads and shoulders for above what we wanted. We started working with the council. It gave us more time, and officers who work in planning and policy, who work in climate action, who work in social integration, to co-design the survey with us. So together we held these workshops, and we actually said, well, what data would you want to know and how would you use it? And we used imagination researchers took part in that process as well. So we worked with BMG during that period to co-design the survey. And then we were like watching the tier-to-tier lockdowns. And of course, I'm doing the ethics process as well, which is very much about how are you going to gain informed consent from people, and, you know, if somebody, and make sure that they're understanding what you're asking of them, and is it going to be safe for them? Is it going to be safe for the researcher? So we managed to line it up where we did some face-to-face pilot, and then we changed our methodology to mixed by that time. So they did the online interviews, and then they looked at who had answered that in terms of a sample, and then they went into the community and did very targeted face-to-face interviews to make up so it was a representative sample.
Superb. So when you went through the period of the survey, what then came out in terms of findings out of the life survey?
Well, as Jo Knight said when we launched the findings, she said it's quite an unusual survey because it was a 30-minute interview, 76 questions with lots of multiple choice. I think it's about 300 variables. So questions covered everything from how safe people feel in their area to council services, from technology usage, accommodation, food insecurity, wealth and opportunity, their income, a real range. So whilst it doesn't do a deep dive into any of those topics, what it does allow us to do is look at various demographics or analyse the survey by area to really interrogate and get a cross-analysis of all those, how people feel about all these different things.
So what was the period of when you got the survey out to getting the findings, and where are you now in terms of using those findings?
So it actually took quite a while because the survey happened and then quite a lot of the BMG team got COVID, so that delayed it. And then also what we did was we collaborated with the Connected Places Catapult, who are a UK sort of national government agency for accelerating innovation in cities and transport, and they take a lot of this data. And as you'll have seen during COVID, the government developed a lot of dashboards to tell us what was happening. So we actually developed a dashboard. So they took the data from that, and we developed some really in-depth case studies. Like we looked at food insecurity in the Lancaster area, and the beauty of the dashboard is that it can actually integrate other data sets. So we took some trust data and overlaid it with our food insecurity data to really see where things are. Lancaster City Council were very interested in child poverty and areas of hidden poverty, because you can have in Lancashire quite affluent areas, but there's actually hidden poverty in those areas. We looked at sustainability. Those findings are really interesting. It was really clear that there's real socio-economic links to sustainability and climate action and our attitudes to that. Engaging in sustainable practices, such as is really correlated with good physical and mental health. We found that a third of people said nothing would reduce their car usage, but actually then other people said, actually, if you had better, more frequent public transport and better cycling paths, then maybe I would. Lancaster district residents are more likely to drink often, but also more likely to exercise frequently to balance it out.
You mean drink alcohol? Or
to drink alcohol, and that's compared with residents of Blackburn with Darwin. We asked questions about COVID. So they said that has caused 30% of neighbours to get to know each other better, but also made people a bit more uneasy about mixing with people that they don't know. And there were some really positive findings in Blackburn with Darwin about communities in multicultural areas and how strong those bonds can be. So it really covers such a wide range of topics.
Food insecurity, that interests me as a phrase. Can you kind of unpack that for us and what that means and how?
Yeah, it's very much, I actually did a project with Food Power where we worked with people who were experts in, well, lived experience of food poverty, who basically can't afford to eat as often as we would want to eat and eat well. But often people don't realise that they're experiencing food poverty, and we co-designed a range of tools that could help draw out people's experiences and then be advocates in terms of what policy changes were needed for long-term sustainable change. So I kind of knew quite a bit about that area before we did the project, but it's very much in terms of, can people eat what they need to feel healthy and feel full?
And that point that you made, they don't always know.
Absolutely. Some people don't recognise this. Yeah. We did a project with young people on that, and sometimes people just don't realise that what they're experiencing is food insecurity, especially young people.
Right. I mean, that's you know that you not knowing that. How did you kind of educate people around that?
When we do co-design, I would very much always try and work with an expert in that area. So we work with Ben Pearson, who was the empowerment officer at Food Power. So we worked with residents on an estate in Byker in Newcastle. Oh, yeah. So Ben had the links. He also worked with a lot of young people in Blackburn with Darwin in Lancashire. So we very much designed these tools that drew out conversations about food. So we had like a pack of cards that would have very local foods on, like things in pies in Byker and things like that, and also curries. And food is so linked to our memories. So we would start people off by just really gently talking about food and then pulling out experiences and then very, very sensitively going into those other topics. We've gone off tangent, but this does build on other work that we've done, and then we want to draw on these findings to do deeper work, of course, with communities.
I think the kind of point of digging in there interested me is that there's so much of what you've done that you know, people who have got a very short amount of time to hear and you might be interested in. So I'm wondering, can anybody access the findings? And if they can, if it's open access, what were the challenges about making that data open access?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ethics was, you know, challenging. We interviewed almost 3,000 people. So how are you going to approach that? How are you going to make sure that data set is anonymised and safe and secure? So that was a huge challenge, and I think I really welcome ethics now, because I've learned that it's actually a real opportunity to think through what you're doing. And Stuart Walker he's brilliant at thinking, if I got this, what would I be thinking? But I would say that the survey findings themselves are completely publicly accessible. If you go to imagination.lancaster.ac.uk, on our homepage there's a blog about the live survey. There's 3 reports. There's analysis of Lancaster, analysis of Blackburn with Darwin, and an interesting one that compares them. And there's also the 6 catapult case studies that you can download. But when we were putting in the ethics at the last minute, the principal investigator, because it was a sensitive data set, because as Joe Knight said, if you've got somebody who is French speaking and lives in Bear and they've got an electric car, then it's not that anonymous, is it? Because, you know, people are looking at the data locally. So we restricted the actual data set sharing to Lancaster University researchers and the City Council, and we did an information sharing agreement to enable that. So anybody who is staff can approach us. But what I wish we'd done is think more about how we would want to use the data afterwards, because what we could have also put in there was that we could have done an aggregated data set, and then we could have just uploaded that onto population data sets. But there's your learning curve.
Indeed.
So I'm sure Lancaster University researchers could analyse it and link it, but we can't just send it out there. So that was a step further that I wish we'd taken. But if anybody's ever written a funding bid, it's very much like everything changes at the last minute, and you get the funding bid and you go, how many papers did we say we'd write? You know, I think ethics can be a bit, those little tweaks at the end. So that's a learning curve. But I worked with Joanne Fitzpatrick in the library, and she was fantastic, and she really helped me think it all through.
So very, very quickly, actually, because that's a nice advert for the work that's often, you know, not expected from a library. What did Joe do with you? What was the
Well, strangely, I'm not a researcher. So the principal investigator on this project was Professor Leon Cruikshank in Imagination. Because I'm sort of strategic partnership management and it needed procuring, I ended up doing a lot of the workshop organisation, but I was loving it. It was such an interesting project. Leon can't be here tonight, but Joanne, when it came to actually putting it together on Pure, she had a meeting with me, and I really didn't know where to start with everything. I'd done the information sharing agreement, so she really helped me think it through in terms of should all those reports be together in one place and who the authors should be, and just all those little tick boxes on Pure about what's private and what's public. It's really detailed, and she was just so friendly and so approachable, and I do apologise for how many Teams messages I sent her, because it did seem quite complex, but I had to get it right.
No, that's really helpful, and for people who are wondering, Pew is the university's research system, so that's really helpful. Now, you made the point you're not a researcher, and you're involved in a lot of things, and I believe you've got a climate action event in November.
Do. So I'm just going to get my notes here, because I want to get the date right.
Perfect.
Building on what we said about attitudes to sustainability, one thing we're really interested in is equitable climate action. So how can everybody get involved in climate action? So we've got a morning event at Lancaster House Hotel on Tuesday, the 22nd of November. We're collaborating on this event on Future Observatory, and they're a national research project at the Design Museum in London. So it's great because they've got lots of brilliant contacts, and the event's called Adapting Together, How Can We All Play a Part in Climate Action? We've got some great case studies. We've got all these brilliant organisations from Brixton, Birmingham, Bristol, real sort of social justice, climate action collectives, coming sharing their experience of engaging communities in climate action. We've got Super Slowway, a brilliant project over in Blackburn with Darwin. We've got projects from Morecambe. We've got Mark Davies, the Chief Executive of Lancaster City Council. He's going to be one of the people that respond to these 8 case studies that we've got. It's open to all, staff, students, public. And again, if you go to imagination.lancaster.ac.uk, it's on the homepage.
Fantastic. And Gemma, it would be remiss of me not to say, given the role this library plays within this community, if there's any way we can support that, whether that be kind of advertising it
That'd be brilliant.
I think let's have a discussion outside this conversation.
That would be great, because we really want to look at this event and think who would love to come, who would benefit from coming, how can we reach them, because Imagination, we don't really do public engagement events that are just open to all. So if anyone can help spread the word and is interested in coming, then please help us.
Well, you've certainly talked to Joe. I'm sure there's other colleagues that we can talk to, and then make sure that we can think about how we use this space, for instance.
Yeah, be
brilliant. Great. Thank you, Gemma. That was fantastic. I do appreciate you coming on. And again, like each of the conversations we've had, this stimulates thought for how we can connect and how we can engage with each of our speakers tonight. So thank you, Gemma.
You're welcome.
It's now, I'm delighted to introduce Go Mercy, which is Jonathan Parks' nom de plume. We are about to hear some dreamy electronica. Go Mercy was founded in 2020 and searches for atmospheric synth landscapes paired with soaring lead lines. So think Jar, Gary Newman, the Chemical Brothers. I'm a big fan of electronica. I'm a big fan of the electronic music collective that Go Mercy is part of, which is Hymns for Robots in Lancaster, as well as other local venues around the city. You can find Go Mercy, and they're also visible on all the obvious online spaces, as I know from listening on SoundCloud. Jonathan Parks is a former student and a current member of staff in our student recruitment team. So, Go Mercy, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here tonight, and I thought I'd say a few words before I get going. With electronic music, it's, once you get started, you get into a little bit of a flow, and you can't really stop, so I'll kind of get going, really. Just to add a little bit about myself, I think the idea was that I play guitar, and I thought I'd quite like to try electronic music, and I expected that the amount of equipment and gear that I would use would get less. And I'm not really sure how that panned out. I think you saw us lifting this absolute beast of a setup onto the table here. So it's quite safe to say that it didn't become quite as minimalist as I hoped. Where did this all come from? I think this all came from the pandemic. That's a big theme you'll probably find, with musicians, with artists. We all of a sudden couldn't get out into the world and do this thing that we really enjoyed, which is standing up in front of people and showing people what we do. And I got really into electronic music because all of a sudden I could perform music at whatever time I wanted to and not annoy my girlfriend. And also the flatmates that existed around me in the building as well. So what electronic music did for me was give me this world and this escapism that I think we all really wanted in lockdown. And if I think about where a lot of this music came from, I can really picture a view looking across to the White Cross building in Lancaster and kind of that whole space really. So a lot of the sounds that I go for are searching for this depth and this atmosphere. And I'll try not to get too wordy and I'll avoid being too pretentious. So thank you very much for listening. My name's Go Mercy and I'm going to get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Go Mercy. Jonathan Parks, thank you. Lancaster's a hotbed of electronica, and I think you've just heard why. Thank you. So our final performer is Philip Donkersley. Philip is a researcher and lecturer in the Lancaster Environment Centre here at Lancaster University. He works in ecology, in conservation. He's really smart, he tries really hard, and sometimes he's been described as almost funny.
Thank you. That is the first in your 2 contractually obliged laughs tonight. 2. Great, I'm done. See you guys later. Bye. Hi, everyone. So, as you said, my name's Phil, and I'm here to talk funny at you for the next 10 minutes. Now, I just want to point out that we've just had 3 amazingly talented musicians, like 2 acoustic, 1 techno, absolutely incredible performers. And now you've got me. Great, thanks, fantastic. So what am I? I'm an ecologist, I'm a conservationist. I have traveled basically all over the world over the last 10 years studying the natural world. And being an ecologist, when you're starting off, you can basically choose whatever you want to study. So you can go for like trees, amazing eternal creatures, fueling the planet, helping us breathe. You can go for birds of paradise, you know, like this. The most amazing dancers and performers. But I thought, no, they're not good enough. I'm gonna go for the best thing on the planet. Fucking bees! Who doesn't love a good bee? Now, you got bees, right? You've got me, the absolutely stereotypical scientist, the cis-het white man. And gotta say, right, it is great being a cis-het white man in today's society because, you don't have to try very hard to sound cultured and evolved and just better than the average man. So my job, right, I actually spend my time listening to women in my job. Problem is that the women I listen to, all it ever sounds like is bzzz, because they're bees. I bet you didn't know that. So most of the bees you ever see are all female. They're all the ones doing all the hard work. They are the ones making honey. They're pollinating. The boys in every single hive, they just sit around on their fat asses the entirety of the year, eating food, mating, eating food, getting thrown out of the hive because all they do is eat food and mate. That's good life, I guess. Now, so over the past couple of years, obviously we've had this a couple of times now, we've had the talks of lockdown, we've had the talks of what life's been like under COVID. And I guess a few of you in the audience got pets during lockdown, like a hamster or 2, a cat, a dog, maybe a few chickens. I thought, right, perfect time, I'm at home, I can't get out across the world and see my animals. What am I going to do? I'm going to one-up everyone else. You got 2 cats, you got 3 hamsters, I've got 60,000 bees. And that's just great. I love this. I've still got them. They've just had their first honey harvest. I've got fuck tons of honey, too much that I know what to do with. So just, my life's getting quite sticky right now. Now, I guess the brief that I was given when I was told to do this was to come and talk bees and science and the world through the medium of comedy. And I can totally do that. I can totally go off on about how around the world there are thousands of species of bee and they're all really amazing and different. So like in Japan, right, you've got the giant honeybee, Apis dorsata. This is the biggest bee in the planet. It is this big. It's gigantic. Wow. Now, you've also got, in South America, you've got a whole different class of bees. They're called sweat bees. And do you know what they are? They are bees. And they drink sweat. They're delicious. They make the worst honey imaginable. But they are incredibly cute. I didn't realize what they were when I first met them. sort of bumbling through the rainforest, and I had a bunch of really calm, gentle bees just come onto my hands. And they're having a little slappy, slappy, slap. And I thought, oh, that's really cute. What are these? And I was like, Phil, these are abelhas de cachorro. And that means, in Portuguese, dog bees. I was like, oh, sweet, dog bees, like little fuzzy bees, like me and my friends. It's like, no, Phil, they're called dog bees because they make their nests from dog feces. I'm looking at them like, you're still so cute, though. Now, the thing is, right, you got bees in, like, the UK, you got the honeybees. They live in a very specific kind of culture. They have, I'm sorry, I seem to be force choking you inadvertently with my hand. I'm really sorry, I can't seem to stop. Do you want me to stop? You don't? Cool, I'll keep you there. Yeah, I'll talk to you later, thank you. So we're talking about bee culture. So, you know, the bees, right? Honeybees, they're ruled by the queen. Now, this is material that I wrote 3 weeks ago. I'm still going to do it because I'm risky like that. I'm about to make everyone in the audience either really uncomfortable or everyone who was in charge of this really regretted the decision to put me on stage last. So the queen, right? She rules through her sheer force of will. She doesn't have a funny hat, but she does have the most powerful ability in the natural kingdom, body odor. So her job is to sit in the hive, right, and put out all this smell and tell all of her serfs what to do and how to behave. So you've got bees, right, that are in charge of collecting honey. You've got bees that are in charge of looking after all of her babies. This is not political comedy, okay? I am trying to get onto the BBC, and they do not let you do political comedy on the BBC. Inform, educate, entertain. Okay, we got this. So the queen is telling all her workers to do food, baby keeping. She also tells them to do guarding, right? So guarding is where they sit at the entrance. You all know guarding is, right? Isn't it? Right now, things like wasps and other bumblebees and things like that are trying to break into hives and steal their honey because they spent all the season doing that, like yada. And I always like to imagine like the guarding bees that sit at the entrance is something like what you find at the entrance to a lot of clubs, right? So you've got these bees sat at the entrance, these big tough bee, or I'm not going to let you guys in. And then you get a wasp and goes, oh, come on, mate, I'm on the list. You can see I'm on the list. Like, oh, I don't think you're on the list. I'm not on the list. Yeah, I'm seriously, I'm on the list. I'm not a bee. I'm a bee. I'm not a wasp. Check on the list. Can you tell that as a white, cis-het, milk-toast white guy, I have never been in this situation. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I think I'm trying to make it as convincing as possible. So the bees, right, they're trying to let them in, they don't let them in, and they go, there's tension, and it doesn't fucking work. I'm just going to take a brief aside from talking about bees in order to give some people in the audience a bit of useful life advice. You didn't think you'd get that tonight, did you? So, anyone in the audience here, are you the household spider catcher? Because a lot of households have them. Anyone here in charge of catching spiders? Excellent. We have a spider catcher in the audience. So, here's a bit of fun knowledge you can break out whenever you're like sick and tired of collecting spiders and throwing them outside, right? What you do is you look at the spider, and you know how you get some house spiders that are big and muscly? We also get those ones with the little blobby bodies with the really long legs, right? 9 times out of 10, that is not a spider. That is called a harvestman. It's in the genus Opiliones. It's an insect. Fucking great. And what you can do is, if you say, oh, there's another spider in the house, can you get it out for me? He's like, aha, no, it is not a spider. It is in fact an insect, genus Opiliones. It is a harvestman. Because the most attractive thing you can do as a male mate signalling organism in the human race is be pedantic as fuck. Now, I'm going to pivot back to bees again, because I loved rambling through the insect world and eventually always working my way back to bees. Did you guys know there is another creature that looks like a bee, much like Opiliones looks like a spider, called a bee fly, right? It's a fly. It's not a bee, it's a fly. It's incredible. It looks just like a bee. And guess what? Even better, it's a parasite of bees. So what it does is it sneaks into a bee's hive. And where did I put the fucking tip there? Excuse me a moment. So this bee, right? It disguises itself like a bee. So sneak into a bee. Stay. This is a nice suit. This is also something I've never managed to get done properly. Thank you, techie guys, for the tape. So it's dressed up. It looks just like a bee. It's going to sneak into the bee's hive and go, guys, I'm a fucking bee. Look at me. And I said, okay, hi, Susan. It's nice to see you again. Do something with your hair? Yeah, no, I'm serious. I'm definitely a bee. I'm definitely Susan. You know who I am. Look at stripes. Yeah. I've got this baby. Can you look after it? Like, yeah, of course. That's weird that you'd ask, but sure thing. Yeah, we'll take the bees. Like, I've got 500 other babies as well. Could you have them? And I'm just going to go over here and never come back. Weird request, Susan, but sure you're off. That's our job as bees. Queen's telling us to do that. We'll do it. And that's how bee flies parasitize hives. And I have now done my contractual obligation to inform and educate. Speaking of which, this space here this is going to stay on the whole show, by the way. This space here is a bit, it's an important place for me because this is the place 6 months ago where I did a show with my other kind of research. I do weird stuff with bumblebees. I make boxes that bumblebees can live in, and we can watch them without them knowing. It sounds weird. It's really scientific. Trust me, especially if anyone from NERC is in the audience and wants to fund this research, it's really scientific. But the thing is, it's great for like public engagement. Like you can show people what's going on inside the hive. It's like the chick cams from the preschool across the roads. It's lovely. It's fantastic. I did a show here using that bee box in this very room because the deans heard about it, and then they told me, Phil, we can trust you to have 20,000 live bees in a library. Now the thing is about bees is that if they escape, they can live for more than 6 months just all around the library when you have a green wall that the bees can feed off of. And I'm not saying none of them escaped, that I know of. But I am very keen to keep this show as short as possible so that I can run away as soon as it's over for no reason to do with bees. Okay? Now, the very most important thing I have to probably tell you about is that, as I say, I'm really keen on my education, I'm really keen on my information, I'm really keen on my entertainment. And I really want to get onto public television, public radio. You could say I'm really keen on the BBC. Thank you. I will be taking no further questions. And now I'm going to go over there and take some further questions. Thank you very much. Good night.
I will now welcome Phil to the sofa to ask him some questions.
I look forward to these questions.
Yes, bring your microphone, please, B-man.
Honk.
Dr. B-man.
Honk, honk. Also a fan of gooses.
So, Phil, as you approach the sofa, what made you turn your research into comedy?
That's a very good question. What made you think I turned my research to comedy?
If I was answering the question, I'd be sat there.
But why are you sat over there?
So I could ask questions.
Why did you like asking questions?
Because I don't like answering them.
Oh, that's interesting. What is it about answers that you don't like?
Revealing too much of my inner self.
What's going on in your inner self?
Not very much.
Why do you think that? You seem to be quite a lot of self.
Can I lie down?
You're very transparent.
Can I lie
Sorry,
down?
opaque. Sorry, you're very opaque.
To say I'm very transparent as well. Why do I... What was the question? I'm going to lie and think.
What is it about your inner self you don't want to reveal to the world?
The lack of depth.
You're plenty deep, right? What makes you think you haven't got any depth?
My family telling me regularly.
Oh, how do you feel about your family?
My colleagues. How do I feel about my family?
Yeah.
My colleagues are lovely.
Yeah. Who are your colleagues?
I think colleagues is probably over-egging it a bit. There's some people over there.
If you could ask them a question, what would you ask them?
What would I ask them?
Yeah.
Regina, why is the shelving still in place on B floor? Fiona, when's the PG space going to be finished?
Regina, do you have any strong feelings about shelving that you want to share with the audience? No? You sure? I have some strong feelings about shelving, but it's not really my place to talk about it because I'm just a B guy.
Yeah, I've got one more question to ask Phil.
You got another question for me? What?
How did he get booked? I thought you were asking me when's this all going to end. I think it's already ended. Phil. So why do you think comedy is a good form of... Well, I mean, comedy. Why do you think comedy is, is a good form of research engagement?
That's again, I have to reiterate, it's a very good question, and I'm really surprised that you're asking me that, considering where it led us last time. So what do you think? Do you like comedy?
Do I like comedy?
Yeah, do you like comedy? Do you like a laugh?
Yes, I used to think I liked comedy, yes.
Yeah. How long ago did that opinion change?
Well, how long have you been since he was on? No, in all seriousness, do I like comedy? I do. I like old-fashioned comedy without swearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was told to do PG-13.
Were you? Well, obviously his version of PG-13 is different to my version of PG-13. I do like comedy. I like Tony Hancock. So you can see the direction of travel I'm going in terms of my comedy. I like Much Binding in the Marsh.
You like your comedy to last about half an hour?
I do about half an hour, though 25 minutes if you get to Hancock and the blood donor. So come on, research engagement. Why? Is it about opening people up, and then you can stick your bees in?
Do you think I should actually answer that question, or should I just continue? So what is it? Are you afraid of bees?
Am I afraid of bees? Yeah. Not particularly. Don't like. I quite like bees.
But you seem to be quite intimidated about the idea of having bees inserted into you.
Wouldn't fancy them in my mouth.
No?
Do you know Joe Orton?
Yeah.
You know Kenneth Halliwell, who
Jerry.
Kenneth Halliwell, who you know Jerry. It's not going by that name anymore. Kenneth Halliwell, his mother died when a bee entered the mouth and stung. That put me off bees slightly.
Do you have a fear of mortality?
Do I have a fear of mortality? Not particularly. I don't fancy going yet.
But you've got a plan for when?
Well, that'd be telling, wouldn't it? That'd be telling.
Oh, it's just you and me here. Wink.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind another 20-odd years. 30 years, maybe. 50
30 years? Yeah. Jesus, man.
Yeah. I'm not Jesus. He went to 33.
Well, still, that's not bad. Yeah. At least he still had his hair.
At least what, sorry?
At least he still had his hair.
Yeah.
It was pretty good hair, wasn't it?
Well, it depends which portrait you believe, I suppose.
Oh, the good ones, you know, with the cut abs and the...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we're on the rock and roll king rather than the...
Oh, definitely. Jesus was totally rock and roll.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant Elvis, just when we moved on to hair. Now, I'm very conscious that we are, as somebody said, overrunning. Now, I could do this all night with great fun. I suspect some of the audience couldn't. Particularly the ones I have to drive home. But, Phil, I think we have the answer to the question, why? I think for this, Phil, we don't have the answer to the question, why? But I would like to thank you, because that was amazing. Seriously, let's talk after this, and I'll answer some of those questions properly. Thank you, Phil. Phil can be found researching bees day and night and telling jokes occasionally. Cheers, Phil. Seriously, that was really good. We do come to the end of the evening now, sadly. I would like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank everybody who's come to the Library Festival this year, all the events. I'd particularly like to ask Phil, who really delved deep into my psyche and illustrated how shallow it is. I'd like to thank all our musicians
and my interviewees this evening. So I will name you all to thank you. We have got Romain and Cyrille. We've got Daisy, Alice, Scott. We have Gemma, Jonathan as Go Mercy, and we have Phil. So thank you all. But actually, this festival is much more than just the people who come along and the people who speak and sing and all of those things and display. This is also the people who stand in front of cameras and make me look incredibly handsome, which is incredibly difficult at the best of times. I'd like to thank those people who made sure we were actually able to do things. So Chris Dixon, who's not here now, but has been throughout. I'd like to thank, most of all, Tom Morley and Phil Cheeseman, without whom we would have no festival. We've talked bees, we haven't talked blue arse flies. We've had a lot of blue arse flies this week, running around from 7 o'clock in the morning onwards. This library festival is about trying to bring together what we do best as a library. That is research, teaching and engagement, and opening up and saying, come in. We're about opening up the doors, not closing the doors. So thank you to everybody who's got involved. Whatever you've done, see you next year when you'll have a better host than me. Thank you.